You're listening to For Better and Worse with Jess and Rach.
Do these pick up on like every sound? Like I breathe a little too heavy and it's there.
It's an interesting question that you're asking because I have no idea because these are brand new mics and we're using them for the first time today.
Okay, here we go.
We are hoping that everything goes well. So
New mics, new guest.
new mics, new guest. Welcome Meredith to the pod. Longtime listener, first time guest.
Amen.
And shout out to Jerry of Ladies and Tangents, aka Jerry of my friend Jerry, for graciously taking pity on our podcast and gifting us these new mics.
Wow.
So I said,
Thanks,
Jerry, if you wanted to sponsor us, you can always just ask.
Yeah,
If you
if
want
they
free.
we can wear next
Free
time. We
pub.
can wear Ladies and Tangents shirts. We'll wear them every time.
I do need my.
I say we. Next time, Jess will just be wearing everything.
Yeah. Well, I've been meaning to buy. I just can't buy clothes right now. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's.
Yeah. Welcome to the next like 3 to 4 years of your life.
I know. Like, and for whatever reason, I'm like looking up. Oh, Kors? That's not. Kors took one of Meredith's shoes and has found his.
We're on a journey.
On a journey. Don't chew that. Okay. But, yeah, everyone, this is my best friend Meredith anyway. And she's here.
I'm here.
She's here to talk to me about a multitude of things. So this is actually gonna be like a 2-parter, but you won't hear the second part until I already have a baby.
Yeah,
and I'm on maternity leave.
A mystery time.
Yeah, so it'll be a little throwback course. Also, okay, if you want to know the chaos that is in my house right now, other than the 4 animals, my cat Queenie is now in heat, and her spay is scheduled for next week.
That's the
Literally,
noise.
I scheduled her spay because they told me like, oh yeah, sometime in January. And promptly 2 days later, she starts howling.
I've never heard a cat make the noise that she's making now. I was like, well, it's just a cat, I guess.
Just howling to the moon, trying to find a mate. Herschel's like, what do you want? Because he doesn't got anything to give her. And I'm like, you're too young for that. You are literally a baby. You're a baby. You're 6 months old.
And as someone who's about to have a baby, you can tell her she's not ready.
She is not ready.
She's not emotionally prepared to be a mom.
No, and I'm not. Okay. Oh my gosh. But we're a pro-choice household, so hey, if I ever found out that she snuck out, there would be no kittens. If they give cats
Is that possible?
I know that it's possible for dogs for sure because it's like
how soon do you know? Can you catch it before there's kittens? Probably on the cat Queenie
basically
size, yes.
From the internet, it's basically like cats are so fertile. If a cat has sex, it's pregnant.
Wow.
So it's not.
I
great.
honestly can relate.
You got the fertility gene.
Can relate to that.
You are Myrtle.
Myrtle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Myrtle. Which we're gonna talk more about parenting, pregnancy, etc. in the next episode, but because I feel like it would be good to kind of establish like who Meredith is, where did you come from, how did we become friends? Because Meredith, we were kind of doing a synopsis of like what we're going to talk about, and it's like she comes from a very unique space in my life, and that she actually knew my ex-husband before I did and was best friends with him before I was. So that will be an interesting throwback. His name's Dave, never forget.
Yeah,
don't forget.
Dave. But to clarify, I didn't know him before I knew you.
No.
I just knew him before you did know him.
So Meredith and I met summer of 2008.
Wow.
At church camp. And church camp is also where Dave later would go to work.
Yes.
And Meredith worked there a summer before I did because she was emotionally more mature and could be on staff before her senior year of high school when normally they make you graduate from high school before you work on staff. So you got to work for poverty wages before
I sure did.
When you think about what we would make, I wonder what we actually made weekly. Do you remember?
Because, I know in my last years of working at a summer camp, my last year of working full-time summer, so I would be at like one of the most senior levels of employment. I was making $300 a week. And so when I say that, I am like running the place. I'm like the on-site manager of the camp.
But your meals were provided.
Yeah. And at the time, I will say, at the time, it was fine because life expenses are low.
True.
But having any real world knowledge, you're like, how people can't. This can only be a job for people who don't really need an income, because you cannot have any sort of bills you're paying regularly.
No, hence why they normally prey upon young, recent high school graduates,
college kids. Yeah. Because you also have to work for like 3 months straight.
Right.
So you can't have another job or any sort of real life anywhere else.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah, June and July are
owned by
camp.
We'll just call it camp. It was camp to us. Oh, my gosh. But you were a camp kid.
Yeah,
like,
I did.
Before you went to our camp, I
grew up in like specifically church camp. There was another camp I went to as a kid, but I love camp. I started going to camp when I was like 3rd grade, I think.
Yeah. As young as my mom could send me. Yeah. I was Girl Scout camp and church camp.
Do you remember that there was another friend of ours?
I do.
In this Cabin 7.
Cabin 7. It's like being in heaven. We made a whole chant about it. And sure we were a trio once, and then quickly.
Yeah, it just like catches me off guard because I came to camp with the other side of the triad.
Yeah, you did. Mm-hmm. You carpooled.
Yeah.
And then here we are. So Meredith and I actually grew up, like, this camp was far away from both of us.
Yeah.
Very far from you.
Well, it's a denominational church camp. So it was connected to the church I went to. That's why I ended up at a camp almost 3 hours away from where I live.
Right.
It's because the way the state of Ohio is split.
Yes.
That's where the camp they send you to was.
But you grew up in Tiffin, which is
Ohio.
BFE, Ohio.
Literally small town. If you're like, oh, I've heard of a college there, it's literally all that's there. There's the 2 colleges.
There's 2 colleges there.
Tiffin University and Heidelberg.
Taxes must be low out there.
It's what they call themselves, like the education community.
And I grew up in Kent, as many of you know, and it was always funny when Meredith would come to visit because it was like the big city.
Oh, yeah. And now I go to Kent and I'm like, wait, this is not that big. You have to go everywhere else to go to like Target and stuff.
I know.
Because now I live in Canton, which is it's a pretty decent sized place.
Yes.
Got everything.
Canton was the civilization for camp. So after every weekend, staff would like go.
Yes. And there used to be, is it Don Pablo's? That was where a lot of weekends went to Don Pablo's and Canton.
But so we met when we were 14.
Sounds right.
And then would kind of like, some years we'd see each other, some years we would not during the school years.
Like because we're friends now, you want to look back and think like, I'm sure we saw each other multiple times throughout the year, and like how often did we even really talk?
No, and you never used to answer your phone either.
No.
You were bad about that.
And now I'm better at answering phone calls than I am text messages. I
know, and it still surprises me to this day.
I know.
So it was really ingrained that I was like, she does not answer her phone.
No.
And then eventually we got into our post-high school years, which would have been summer we worked at camp.
Yeah.
And then you moved closer, right?
After high school, I left.
Yes.
So we would have done camp. But then I went to Germany and India and then came back. So I was like gone. Probably felt different, though.
Yes. So there's a lot of ins and a lot of outs.
Yeah. But like in that trip, when I was gone that year, I spent Christmas with Dave's family.
Yes, you did. Okay.
I have like my whole own trip to England in my mind.
And let it be known, it was like this very strange phenomenon when because Meredith was close with Dave's, not only Dave, who we worked at the camp, but like his whole family.
Yeah, I had spent like Christmas, and they were so kind to me at Christmas. So it was like a very now where we've ended up now, it's a very like unique, interesting. You don't feel like defensive of them. It feels like its own isolated
a very different version.
Yeah, I know a very
like
different
you didn't
version
come
of
in
them.
as a girlfriend, and I don't think they ever saw you as that.
I was never going to be taking him away from anything that was going on.
No.
If anything, I was just joining in when it could work out.
But I will say, your experience with his family did not prepare me for my experience.
No, and it didn't prepare me to be like a better friend during that time. Because I'm just like confused. I'm like, this was not what I experienced there.
No.
I would even consider being in that house like a warm, cozy memory to me.
That is so, I'm so happy for you.
Wild.
I'm so happy for you. The thing that I struggle with is like, I still have such fond feelings and memories associated with the UK as a whole.
Yeah.
Like, I still very much would like to go back. I'll still eat beans on toast if I want.
Amen.
Like, I still, mulled wine will always be the superior alcoholic beverage. Like, there's
minced pies, we are missing them.
Yeah, we are missing the minced pies. There's a lot that they do right. And there's a lot I still love, and I would go back.
I'm sorry. That's a healthy way to be looking at things, is that we should be able to not associate one family or one incident with an entire nation of typically normal and cool people.
So I'm just so mature, basically.
Evolved.
But so we were asked a couple questions, and we will go through these questions. But a very, very question that made me laugh out loud that we'll just start things off strong with.
Okay.
Was, have you ever had a partner the other didn't like? And if so, did they say anything about it?
This is gonna be good.
This is a long, like we could probably do the whole episode about this, because I think, and it probably will be about this, because we're going to talk about adult friendships in this episode. And obviously, as an adult, you're navigating partnerships with different people. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to say, Meredith's type has never been my favorite type of man.
It exposes this question, and the whole conversation will expose how different we actually are as people.
Yes.
Well, like we have like half or more of us that is so similar and so alike.
Yes.
And then there is this other half that you don't always notice, but it has to be so different by all the choices we make.
Yes. But the question is, have Meredith's husband, Nick, and I have struggled for years and years and years. And we're getting somewhere, I think, now.
It's like a slow,
it's very
and steady
slow
event.
He's a 5 on the Enneagram. No shade, but they're not my favorites.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, well, like, go on. We'll get into it.
But the first experience I had, because there were boys in high school that you dated briefly, but never.
There was literally like one. There was probably like other interests, but I had one person who was classified as a boyfriend, and he was just dirt. Like,
yeah.
Probably as a person now, he's fine and interesting, but like he was like the definition of a like teenage dirtbag.
And rolling over, then you started dating who we are going to affectionately call Frank, who also so happened to be Dave's best friend, British best friend. That's so both Meredith and I at the same time are dating best friends.
Yeah.
Dave is navigating the fact that me and Frank don't really like each other. And then Meredith starts dating Frank.
Yeah, Meredith. This was not in my mind all, but I'm like, was I thinking like, oh, I'll just make this better. We'll just date, and then everything will be fine.
I know this is a throwback. This is like a 10-year throwback. 9 years?
Gosh,
9 years, because I did get an update that we were in.
But it would have started
9 years ago. We were in.
But it would have
London
started
for New Year's Eve.
Yeah, London for New Year's,
which is its own story.
We're like our own like 90s girl movie. We are our own chick flick.
Yes, we were our own main characters, and we wanted to be in London on New Year's Eve.
But it started. Me and Frank. That started that summer before. Remember? because he was also working at a camp, and he came to Chers House.
Okay.
And I was working at a camp, so I also came to Chers House on the weekend.
As everyone should, and as everyone does.
Highly recommend. If you've not had a weekend at Chers House,
you should.
We recommend
it's where all good loves come to blossom.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how.
Yeah.
Okay,
it all started. Wow, this weekend is like, it's a core memory. Because you and Dave had been together for how long then?
A year?
Okay. I couldn't tell. I couldn't remember if it was the summer you started or
yeah. I don't remember. No, yes, it would have been
the summer after. Because No,
it would have been the summer we started. So
yeah, it was like you guys started at the beginning of the summer. Remember, because of graduation party.
Yes. Okay, coming back because that was the trip. The New Year's Eve was the first trip I took.
You're like, yeah, you're like 5 months into this relationship.
Yeah. But 5 months in Christian girl time is basically
an eternity. Why are you pregnant, married and pregnant at this time?
True.
So ask yourself
this question. If you are thinking, if you want to have a good Christian girl fall.
Yeah.
Where.
Because we can't have a Christian girl summer.
It's filled with church camp and the Lord.
Yeah. So you're focused during
and
those
a lot
times.
Of crying.
Yeah. But no, so and then at the end of summer, we all are Chers House. There's hanging out. There's kitchen dance parties.
Mm-hmm. And there's me thinking Frank is a wet damn blanket.
But Frank is pretty good looking.
Frank is very good looking. I will give you.
Frank is attractive.
For all of that, Frank, if you are listening, you are very hot. And I've never told you that, and I've never been honest with you about that.
Because we think you know it.
But damn.
I know.
Damn. Yeah, that was a lot to take in.
Well, so I think this is important. Well, because Rachel says I have a very specific type, and I do. It's personality-wise,
not physically.
Well, but the first two guys,
yeah,
we'll call him Cody for the high school. We'll call him Cody and
Warped
Frank.
Tour hotties.
Yes,
that is the aesthetic.
Yes, they're tall. They've got kind of punky vibes.
Yeah,
they're quiet, a little moody. Everyone hates to be around them. Meredith is drawn to it because I'm like, oh, I'm the opposite.
A mystery.
You're a mystery, and I'm going to pull it right out of you. I'm going to be the only one who gets it.
And so, before we roll into our experience of adult friendship, getting into my relationship with Nick, and all of that, I want to bring us back to New Year's Eve, 2015, New Year's Eve.
Are you talking about when we were in England?
Yes.
2015? No.
Because Dave and I got married in 2016. Or would it have been 2014? It would have been 2014. We're bringing it back to New Year's Eve going into 2014.
Yeah.
I have a beautiful coat that year. Yeah. And I'll never forget it. And I think that is one article of clothing that I have kept, despite the fact that it will never fit me again, because I was post quite the serious eating disorder, or in quite the serious eating disorder. But it was a beautiful coat. A nice hunter green. It had some sort of like cape situation.
Yes.
It was
fabulous. We both had fancy coats that night.
Yes.
Mine was not like a nice coat. It just looked cool.
Okay. So we both are visiting our boyfriends and staying with their families in the UK.
If you just give like the pinpoints of this, it sounds amazing. And then you get into the details and it's basically terrible.
Two American Ohio gals dating some cute British babies.
Mm-hmm.
Not baby, adult boys. But it sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's like if you give the Instagram
we are also
version.
19 years old, 20 years old.
19, 20. Yeah, one of those.
We would have just turned 20.
Yeah.
The boys are a couple years older than us.
Yeah.
So we're just like, we're very young. And we decide.
And we're like caught up in this, like, but individually, we're caught up with our booze here.
Yeah, we're caught up with our booze. You and I are struggling to communicate. I think it's it was like our first real, like, experience of like, okay, we were best friends because we are best friends.
Yeah.
But then there's like, okay, best friends realistically are going to go through struggles. And I can't remember like why or how, but like I really struggled with you dating.
Yeah.
Frank. this is gonna happen.
I mean, what are the chances?
I've never name dropped my ex-husband, but his best friend is getting just dragged through the mud, whatever. But I don't remember further than that, like what that was.
Well, and it's because most likely I'm like a natural people pleaser. Like I know what people want to do, and I usually do not care to just do what other people want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it was probably our first real instance where we've got two people who opinionate about what they want to do. Like, you know what you want to do or what you think we should do, and has his own agenda, which is to spend the least amount of money possible.
This man was so cheap.
Like,
so cheap in a way that I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, as a confident woman looking back now, I'm like, I made no money, and I paid to fly my butt across, like, over to England for him to spend, like, absolutely no money on me.
Right.
I don't know that I think we went out for dinner one time in which he paid. I think all the other times it was, like, a split situation.
Of course it would be. I'm sure, you wouldn't even have bought your own, like, movie ticket.
Yeah.
And this is the other thing I remember. Remember how you love to see the commercials? The previews?
And do you know this is a problem in my marriage as well?
I believe it.
I will say my husband will get us there to see the previews.
Good.
But my husband does not watch previews. He brings his earbuds in, and he puts earbuds in, and he covers his ears, and he closes his eyes. No spoilers.
He doesn't like watching...
No spoilers.
Previews to movies?
No spoilers.
Like trailers?
No spoilers.
He considers trailers spoilers?
100%, yeah.
So he'll just say, there's a new movie coming out.
And
that's all I need to know.
That's all I need to know. He'll want to know sometimes he'll want to know who's in it. And sometimes that's enough information. Sometimes it's like, there's this new movie coming out and Brad Pitt's in it. And he's already sold. He's going to go see it.
He's like, I've seen what I needed to see.
That's it.
And I want that.
Okay, yeah. So back to...
We have Frank. Frank of all people planned this trip to London. And keep in mind, the boys are from the north, like near Manchester. So it is like a commute to get down. You don't think 3 hours is a lot. Try to go 3 hours in the UK. It's ridiculous.
Yep.
And we took the train and we're staying at a hostel, which is like already I'm like, He did compromise because I was like, I'm not sleeping in bunk beds on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
So we were in like a combo room, like a shared room in a hostel. Like,
think about like the least glamorous hotel room you've ever been in.
Yeah.
Were the beds even like queen sized?
They would have been the UK doubles, which is just like a twin and a half.
I feel like I'm remembering it being like there was no room.
Okay. So.
And we're barely in London.
We are barely in London. And we come to find out later, we are not anywhere where we can get back from being in London on New Year's Eve. So you think of being in London on New Year's Eve, you're watching, I don't know, Big Ben. What? I don't know what it is. It's not the ball dropped.
Yeah.
It's the fireworks, all of that. And instead of like planning, like, booking at a bar, getting reservations, like being somewhere to make everything accessible and able.
Yeah.
Instead, Frank says, let's go to my friend's house, who is actually his and Dave's friend, a girl who happens to be Dave's ex-girlfriend also.
Forgot about that.
That is a key detail.
The most.
So I'm like, why? Why do we need to go there? And we are sitting here, and if anything, this was a bonding moment for me and Meredith, because we're in this woman's apartment with strangers, and like, we don't know what we're doing there.
Yeah. The only like saving grace part of it was that Dave's brother was there.
Okay, and his
was she there too? I feel like she was.
She would have been. We love her.
Yeah. So like, had this not been on New Year's Eve when we had very clear other expectations, it would have been a fine time. It would have been like having dinner. This woman whose house we're at is very obnoxious, but other than that, it's fine.
Yeah.
We wish she could find the coriander.
Guys, have you seen the coriander?
It's like you're watching
I can't find the coriander anywhere. It's like, would it be on the couch? If it's not in the fridge, babe, I think we can do without the coriander.
And like all of us are just sitting in the living room, so no, we haven't seen it unless it's somewhere
Have
it
you
shouldn't
seen
be.
the coriander? I'm like, does it normally get up and walk away? What? I was just like, no, I haven't seen the coriander, and I don't think I'm going to. And I don't even know what coriander is, quite frankly.
I'm fairly certain that
it is cilantro.
Yeah, it's cilantro. So she was looking for like fresh cilantro that she had like misplaced, I guess.
But when I tell you, she would go around and be like, guys.
It was forever. And we're like waiting to go. We're like, get the meal on. Because we need to like still travel.
But keep in mind, this is a free meal. This is a free meal for Frank. And
that is, and I kid you not, the point he made.
Yes.
We travel all the way from Ohio to be in London for New Year's Eve, but what we're after is a free meal.
Yeah. It didn't even come with coriander. So it was really a loss.
And I will say, we're young, so none of us are making a ton of money. Neither of these children are from parents that don't have money.
Let's keep that in mind.
Meredith's parents probably have the least amount of money of anybody's. Yes. But we were doing, I had it covered.
Yes.
It was fine.
Yes. And I just think, one, why was I ever fantasizing anything in a city?
Yeah.
Because as soon as we leave this girl's apartment, which was just like an awkward shit show, and I'm just like not speaking because I want to scream in Frank's face already. Mm-hmm. I mean, the trip is, well, I guess we're at the crux. We're at the purpose of the trip. And when I tell you, people are packed in like sardines trying to get to the city center.
It's like New Year's Eve in New York, but without the show that's in New York. So there's not like one place I think that people are trying to get to. They're just trying to get everywhere.
Yeah, but then we get on the tube, we find our way, and then we're just funneled. Like literally, it's like there's nowhere else you can go but where like the police are telling you can go. And we're like missing it. And I remember thinking like, had I been with a different person, we would have been able to make the best of it and just been like, oh yeah, this is quirky. But I wasn't with someone that was really very much able to roll with any punches.
Yeah.
And he was exhausted, anxious over it. And I'm just like, And then we try to get back.
So
we like missed the fireworks.
We like see them like barely. You can like see them in the distance.
So it was just like, why are we doing this?
Yeah, and then you go and like London has a system and we did not know it.
No, and neither did them. Neither did they.
Yeah, no. There was no research done on how do you handle New Year's Eve in London.
And the obstacle that we were faced with was because Frank wanted to save money on accommodations by staying outside of the city. He did not look up the tube schedule.
That closed
for that exit.
You could only get so far on the tube.
And then public transportation was closed. And then you had to find a taxi. And this is where I think we split up.
Oh, yeah. Because I knew what was going to happen. I knew Frank had no interest in paying for a taxi.
Yeah. Which at the time, I think we spent, it was like 60 pounds was our taxi. Which at the time was a lot of money. That's like $85 probably, $90. As an adult, expected.
You don't even think about it.
I would not even think. I would just be like, yeah, that's what I get for trying to
do anything.
Travel on New Year's Eve.
Yeah. So do you know like what we did?
Oh, I've never asked.
It's one of my, it's like one of those things where you think about and you immediately like, ooh, like, it like hurts.
It's like, oh
God, I can't believe that happened. We literally, so we got as far as the tube would take us towards where we needed to go. And then we stood at a bus station for no less than, it had to be no less than 2 hours.
So it's like 4 a.m.
Yes. And we were he's like determined that this bus is going to come. And I'm like, this bus is not coming. Remember, it's New Year's Eve. It is freezing outside. I was like, this bus is not coming.
And we have cute coats. We didn't say they were warm coats.
They were not warm coats. Meredith is not wearing warm shoes. They're certainly not boots. I'm pretty sure they were like black flats. So we're like waiting and waiting. I think in the end we had to take a taxi because it was like the bus was not going to come till 6 a.m. But we waited outside for like 2 hours. I was like, let's walk. Let's just at this point.
But you got to think, we didn't have maps like there were. This is 2014 technology.
Nope, I had no.
And Frank
I don't even know that
Frank
I had a phone.
wasn't paying for extra data. If there's one thing about Frank, he was not paying for extra data.
He certainly was not. And I like don't think I had a smartphone at the time, so maybe I had my phone on me, but it certainly didn't have. I don't even know if I would have had service, like to send a text.
Right.
So
we ended it up because obviously we are in Christian relationships. So at some point, Meredith crawls in bed with me. Frank crawls in bed with Dave, and we all wake up and we probably don't get breakfast.
No. That was like the one saving grace of the time. We went out and got like a real breakfast. Remember?
Okay.
We went to like, it was like a pub and we got like the full English breakfast.
We did.
It started to make things feel
surprisingly empty.
Yeah, it was. There was no one in there.
Because we really weren't in London. Who knows where we were?
Who knows where we were? But no, yeah, we had like a great breakfast. It was like the only good part of the whole experience. And it like started to make things feel okay again. Like I was like, okay, maybe the four of us can
get through this. Oh my Lord. So that is the start of my experience with, Meredith dating men that I don't like.
Yeah.
And if we didn't want to put the nail in the coffin for this guy, so Mary and Frank are in a long distance relationship.
Yeah, he is in school in England.
And graduating and is planning his next year to be in Australia. Okay?
Or traveling.
Yes.
It was like...
But he was going to. I think he had secured his visa for Australia. Mm-hmm. And so Meredith is like, okay, well, I actually have connections in Australia. I'm going to see if I can get an internship in Australia, which Meredith is Meredith. And so she, of course, did get an internship in Australia and is planning to move there for that next, fall 2014.
Yeah.
What is it? 2 weeks, a month before you're supposed to leave, you get a phone call at camp?
It was, well, first we went to visit because he was working at a camp in DC at the time. So me and my sister Claire and her then boyfriend, fiance, hard to remember.
Yeah, wherever that was.
We all went to visit and we had this like very odd, dramatic few days, which were like fine. And then at the end, he like basically broke up with me. But was like, I think we just need to take some space.
It's like, how could we get any more space?
Yeah, I was like, I can't possibly be too clingy because we're so far away.
And we literally work at camp with no cell service.
Yeah, like we talk maybe once a week. Yeah, and then so it was like I was just like left dangling for a couple weeks, and then I got the call at camp.
I would be shocked
if it was a phone call. I'm certain it was a Facebook message. I'll never forget my phone call.
There are not times in mine and Meredith's relationship where I've ever felt like you've wanted me or needed me. There are many times where you're like, I am so emotionally sad that I need comfort from a friend because you are an independent.
Toxically independent.
Yeah, it's bad. Yeah. We can get into that. But I get a call. Meredith is just sobbing because like I don't think I fully knew the extent of like the pre-breakup.
Yeah, like things weren't great for a while. I would say, from the story, you can assume that Frank never treated me amazing.
No.
Never felt like the apple of his eye, we could say. Never was a prized person in his...
No. But you still moved to Australia for, it wasn't 6 months?
Yeah, it was supposed to be a year.
But you're like, cut this.
I cut it short. I will say, Australia, one of the most formative trips of my life. Glad I did it. Glad I did it without Frank.
Yeah.
Going into it, I was not pumped. Australia was not a place I had ever wanted to go. I was like, it just seems like a different United States. Don't really care to visit. I'd rather visit somewhere more exotic. I'd rather do literally anything else. But if we can be together and be there, I'll go there.
Yes. And so, as you can imagine, this experience of Frank breaking my best friend's heart was not very good for my relationship.
Because he's still best friends with Dave.
Still best friends with Dave.
Getting ready to be engaged to Dave.
Yes. Yes. I'm getting ready to be engaged. And let's just say that, I mean, my relationship with Frank got very smallly better. Just like by a skosh.
Towards like
the end. Towards the end.
The worse things got with Dave, the better things got with Frank.
Hey, don't say it and fantasize about it. Because as we say, he was very hot.
Yeah.
Which I would never have said as a good Christian woman. That I could have lusted after a man.
It was lust. It was pure lust on my end.
Oh my God.
What else about him could have drawn me to him?
Not his personality.
God. Like I don't even know I would say that he's funny. I don't know that that's like Nick is funny.
Yeah.
Frank, not funny. I don't know. I don't remember laughing a lot.
No. But after that, I don't know if my mics are picking up my cats howling.
It's like a wall with a phone.
Queenie, come here, baby. I mean, when I tell you at night, she's like training us for this newborn. She's like, and it's like, oh my God, will you relax?
Puppies are being little angels.
I know, they're so cute. I hope the mics are picking this up because it's absolutely crazy. Okay. So segueing into like that stage of our lives and then fast forwarding a bit to you finally meet Nick.
Yeah.
You are working together at Starbucks.
Mm-hmm.
And let's keep in mind, this story started off similarly because you and Nick worked together for how long before you ever even went on a date? Because you were kind of like, oh, this guy's kind of a jerk.
Well, I probably like 6 or 7 months.
Yeah.
And he was kind of a jerk, but I was immediately like infatuated with him. It was the same thing of like, what is this guy? He's quiet. He's funny. But he is clearly, we have not fully unlocked Nick. And I would love to.
You love that. You love unlocking. And I hate it.
Love to unlock the next level.
Yeah. And that is pretty much the crux of why me and Nick have struggled for as long as we have, is because I refuse to pick the lock because I'm like, you're my best friend's husband.
Right.
I don't think I need to prove but
he came
I will say one thing about Nick is when he has a friend for life,
mm-hmm.
which is kind of similar to me also.
Yes.
But it just goes about it in a different way.
Yes.
Like, and a lot of the times when I was like trying to get my head around, okay, like Meredith and Nick are going to be together and they're getting married, was like, there are these redeeming qualities. He's got a great friend group, great support system. Like his mom is nice. Like I'm picking at any of these things because I'm like, I truly, it's like, I don't have to love him for me to acknowledge that he is good for you.
Yeah.
There have been times for sure where I'm like, is he good for you?
Yeah, it's fair.
But that also came with you getting pregnant very quickly.
Yeah, well, everything with us was very quick. And I think the quickness could have been better had we not gotten pregnant quickly.
Right.
Because I think we would have, I think that was that whole year between basically when Nick and I got together or got engaged, which is like that. But also you were not at a great spot either.
No.
So Nick did not meet Rachel post-divorce.
Yeah.
Married to Josh.
Right.
Nick initially met Rachel at the end of her marriage to Dave.
Yes.
Which was not the best Rachel yet.
Right. So like when Nick and you started dating, I lived in England or in Oregon.
Yeah. And
so I think I had the expectation of like, oh, I'm coming to visit. I'm meeting your boyfriend. This is going to be like a quick, like,
he will understand.
He
will understand this is like a pressure cooker moment. We need to make a lot happen in this one time.
But there's nothing that annoys me more when I'm like sitting down with someone and I'm asking them a question and they give like very like one-word answers and they don't ask questions back. Yeah. And that's very kind of typical of 5s on the Enneagram because they're kind of like reading you and they want to know more about you.
They would rather be the observer.
Yes.
For their first interaction.
Than like an instigator or like a...
Well, here's on 5 years of marriage is now, if we could redo that, the whole drive to wherever we were going for this to happen would be Meredith's pep talk of, this is a very important moment for me. You need to not only like be a human, not a robot.
Yeah.
But you need to intentionally invest in this relationship. I need you asking questions. I need you fully engaged. I want your quips. I want your quick humor. Your need, like, I would, that is not an exaggeration of how I set us up for social interactions these days.
Yeah.
Like before your wedding, I said, Jess and Joe are people I really like to be around. I think they're people you would like to.
Yes.
Default to talking to Joe and put your efforts there.
Yes.
I was like, Josh isn't going to be available at this time. So if you don't know what to do with yourself, this is a worthwhile investment.
Right.
So there you go, Jess, Joe.
And I think the unique thing with Meredith in general is like you are always the most qualified person in the room. Okay?
Well, that's true or not.
You don't want to necessarily be married to someone who like combats that. You want someone that defaults to it.
Yep.
And I think like when we're thinking back of like a lot of our friendship was spent deeply in conservative church culture. And like Meredith, I don't know, like there are times when I make myself go, oh, when I think about conversations that you and I used to have about like if we knew a girl that was like going to school to be a pastor and we were like,
should she be doing that?
How is she going to get a husband? Embarrassing. We were like, because, women really shouldn't be leading. And I feel like it would be very, and you always come and be like, I just don't know if it's going to be good for their heart.
Good Lord.
Oh.
And I will tell you, not even to like toot my own horn, but no one was more designed to like lead in a situation than me.
No, and women, I think.
And women in general, please think of every situation recently led by a man.
Yeah, let's not. The entire government. Maybe not.
So I'm just like, what a thought for us to have.
And because the church is run by men and we learn to trust men in that kind of capacity, I think even though you and I have always been in a different place with our faiths, I think, not necessarily completely different, but like with how our faith was impacting our relationships in our lives.
Yes.
Where like for the longest time, because I thought to save my marriage, I had to like completely fold in on all of those things.
Submit to everything
and want Dave to lead me. Mm-hmm. And that was never anything he wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And I could see you entering a marriage that was like that. And at the time when you were entering a marriage with Nick, I was still pretty deeply involved in church. Mm-hmm. Still wanting that like led wife life, led by your husband life. And I could see him like, you're not entering into that. So like, how could that be good for you? How could this be what you want? And just like my struggle with like accepting that like you were going to have probably not, you didn't have a similar marriage to mine, but like that dynamic of like, you're not going to have a man that like you lead and that leads you and you trust and that you trust the Lord's guidance.
Yeah, that's true. And Nick would happily say,
hell no.
She's sure not.
She's sure not.
Sure as shit not getting that.
Her and the Lord are going to talk to each other.
Yeah, I'm just going to get the message on the back end.
And I'll go with it.
Yeah.
And so I think like I had that internal like bias going into it.
Yeah.
And then we hit the moment where I think our relationship really shifted, which was, and I've talked about this before, I left my marriage in April 2019. In July 2018, I had my first, I went to my mom's.
Yes.
It was the first time I separated myself from Dave and I need space. Mm-hmm. Like I snapped. The specific instance that caused me to snap was he came up to me and I was just like working on my laptop in the living room. And he said, Rach, do you know how many hours of my day I spend closing cupboards?
And Dave truly could spend hours closing cupboards. It might take everyone else 30 seconds.
Like, you just leave them like an inch open. And can you work on, and I just was like, are we talking about fucking cupboards? Are we talking about drawers right now?
Our marriage has been a dumpster fire since the very beginning, and we're going to talk about cupboards.
And you're going to talk about cupboards with me? And I didn't say a word. I was just like, just being scolded by my dad, basically. That's how I felt. And I just said, I think I was silent for approximately 8 hours at our house. And then I was silent for a continual, like, 2 more days at my mom's house. I drove to my mom's house.
I remember this, obviously, vividly.
Because no one could get through to me, so they call backup. They call Meredith. Mm-hmm. And we're sitting in one of my childhood bedrooms. I moved a lot in my house, and we're sitting up, and I'm like, I think my marriage is over. And you're like, I'm pregnant. And I was like, you are? I don't think I gave any sort of like, I think it was just crying. Because also, and this is an interesting story, Meredith's pregnancy was on an IUD.
Yeah, it was all like.
So get them checked.
Yeah, get them checked. If your doctor is, we won't blame all males. But maybe just take a little extra notice if your doctor is a male. Yeah. And if they're telling you you don't need to know about your IUD, like you don't need to know where how the strings should feel or where they're at, it's not true. You should know what's in your body and how it should feel and where your strings are. Because had I known how to check it, I might have known that it was falling out.
And this is also accompanied by a near-death experience for you because your IUD was tilted and your body was like building up fluid.
Yeah. So
you were in debilitating pain, and they thought that it was an ectopic pregnancy, actually, which is that because that's what's common with IUDs.
Yeah. So Nick and I had gone in. We'd been celebrating our 1-year anniversary. Woke up the next morning. I thought just like terribly constipated, like just bad stomach pain. Couldn't get rid of it. 24 hours, called off work, couldn't get rid of it, went into the doctor, and literally the doctor looked at me and was like, whoops. I was pregnant.
And you're like, what?
And so it was like in like less than 3 hours, I like find out I'm pregnant and am being put into emergency surgery to like get what you did have done. Like, which is they told me I was going to lose a tube and an ovary and that they couldn't guarantee that I'd be able to have kids in the future.
Oh, Jesus. But they were wrong because you just had a
I had it. So they determined this. So they did, it was like a pee test to find out I was pregnant. Then it was at the hospital. I got an ultrasound and they saw a mass in my fallopian tube or my ovary. I honestly don't remember. And so that put them into surgery. They're like, okay, she's pregnant and it's not in the right spot. They like put me under, blew up my stomach. But when the doctor got in there, it turns out that the mass they saw was a cyst, which was like not a problem. Then there was the fluid from the IUD being messed up. And then there was the pregnancy, but it was so small. I was like 2 weeks, maybe pregnant. Yeah, like, so you can't like
very freshly implanted.
It wouldn't, I don't know that shows up on an ultrasound.
No.
Like, you can't see it. So,
I mean, it's enough for you to test positive for pregnancy, I guess.
Yeah.
But they told you after this that, okay, actually wasn't ectopic, but you should expect to have a miscarriage because you just had so much trauma. Like, so much happened to your uterus.
So we, like, didn't know what to do or how to, like, tell people. Like, it didn't feel like a pregnancy to celebrate at the time.
Yeah, and you weren't miscarrying yet.
And I'm recovering from surgery still.
Yeah.
So I'm, like, giving Rachel vague details on, like, this happened. I had this surgery. I'm fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I had fluid buildup in my cervix or uterus. I'm like, what the hell? And I'm just count me out for my cat. Queenie. Lordy.
No, she's going downstairs.
Okay. That's where she likes to do her howling. Oh my God. And so me being shocked that you were pregnant on an IUD was one thing. And then just me being like, you are going into a completely different stage of life that I honestly probably could not be farther from.
Yeah.
And then,
it was, and also like mourning the fact that we were about to be, there was a brief moment in time where we were going to be in the same life stage again.
Yes.
And
Newlyweds.
That, yeah. Yes. And then that was changing, which I never felt that needed to go. Your marriage needed to go. So that was never like, I wasn't like, oh, how dare you mess that up. It wasn't the same as I felt about when my sister got divorced. That was harder.
Yes.
But I felt guilty for being pregnant because I knew that. I was aware of like, this sucks.
Yeah.
For that reason.
Right.
But I'm not going to not have the baby for that reason.
Exactly. Yeah. It can't
You would have never expected that.
I'm not going to have an abortion for Rachel's emotional well-being. Okay? Maybe not.
Well, because then with Dave, there were times when you imagined yourself never having kids.
Well, and that was the following, like, okay, if I'm going to stay married, I made this decision. I really was like, you made your choice. You made your choice and you stick with it.
Well, that'll be the 8 for you.
Yeah. Truly. I'm like,
That's a streak of stubbornness.
We basically try to redefine our lives, like him and I, to like, make it work. Like, okay,
you're gonna live separate.
Yeah, we just won't have kids. We won't celebrate holidays together. Like, I won't see his family again. Like,
we'll have separate friends.
Yeah, we'll have separate friends, and we'll just be married. And when I tell you, we convinced ourselves that this was like a good plan.
And guys, they did, because she would talk about it like it was a good plan.
And you, the people please, like, I feel like I've never like seen you as a people pleaser towards me, but that was just because like you weren't always being honest with me. Yeah. And I think I didn't realize that you struggled being honest with me until like
last year. Yeah, but that's true. That's just like, that's on growth for Meredith, is just in general being more honest with, because I think to me it never felt like I wasn't being honest. It was like, I'm making this situation work. Like, it wasn't until I became older and I'm like, no, I have wisdom. I know things. I can observe things. I actually know people very well.
Yes.
I could probably let Rachel know, like, hey, this doesn't seem like a great idea.
Right.
I see red flags. I see you're not happy.
Right.
Like, all of those things. But that was not, like, something that was on my mind at the time of, like, it's my place to say something.
Yeah. Which I think is a weird space that your friendship has always been in a different category. And let me tell you, I spent a lot of time in therapy talking about our friendship, and my therapist was like, but are you in love with her? Because she's like, this is just so weird for you, because it's like, I can be honest with Jess, Madison.
Yeah.
Jerry falls more under your category where it's like, I'm going to read the room, because I think there's just like certain personality types. And I mean, you and Jerry are both 3s. Jerry says she's a 2, but she's a 3.
3s have a 2 in it. Like, we're both probably the same 3-wing 2s, and we can't help it.
Where it's like, you're qualified, you're capable. Do you want my opinion or advice or not? But I think our friendship has always, until recently, we've accepted, like, okay, unless we're honest with each other and unless we say what we mean, like, we're not going to grow anymore. Like, we can't stay in this, like, just trying to, like, appease each other.
Well, I think it's meeting each other as 14-year-olds and almost being stuck as 14-year-olds of like, oh, you forget that life inevitably changes you and your thoughts and your opinions and like who you are. And it's like, get scared to be like, oh, I don't know if you know that I've changed in that, or that I've grown out of that, or that or we're maybe going different ways, but it doesn't mean we can't be friends or we can't talk about things.
And did you find it like hard, like when I was like leaving my marriage, because obviously like you and Dave had your own relationship, like your own history, your own friendship, because I know that's something like he struggled with. Yeah. You and Madison, was that like you guys had your own individual relationships with him.
It was a struggle because, and we've talked about this.
You weren't telling him what he wanted to hear.
I wasn't telling him what he wanted to hear. Like, I was not going to tell him, like, I think she'll get over this and things are going to be fine. And also, the Dave I knew and had become very close friends with was not the same at the end of your marriage.
Right.
Like, you've heard Rachel talk about Dave before. So the Dave I knew was like, I would describe him as goofy and spontaneous and like go with the flow and like just so silly. And we like did like not crazy things, but like funny things together at camp and stuff like that. And then at the end of their marriage, it was
opposite, like type A.
Obsessive.
Yes.
Miserable.
Yeah.
Like it almost feels like he went through menopause
Yeah.
during your marriage. Like this personality completely shifted in a way that he couldn't change back or change.
Right. And that was like my point when I would bring to him is like, you know, we are not good for each other. Like we have both changed in ways that like the people that love us the most do not like.
Yeah.
And I think when the people that you have good relationships with before you enter a relationship, if that relationship, if it is truly a healthy relationship that was built on like trust, respect, like, you know, unconditional love, if those people are looking at you in this new relationship and are like, I don't like what I'm seeing, that's when you should take a peek and see like, is this toxic?
Yeah.
And most of the time, like, yeah, it probably is.
Yeah.
And that was the thing with Nick that was different is like, because I remember being on the phone with your sister when Nick proposed, and I was there when Nick proposed. I photographed it.
Yeah.
And, you know, coming back and we would say like, should we tell her? Claire and I are both 8s on the Enneagram. So we had the same struggles with Nick of just like not connecting well. And in the end, I was like, he loves her. And I know he loves her. And I'm not concerned about her ability to like, I don't think she's a worse person with him. Yeah. I just had concerns
but like maybe is he going to make me be the best person I can be?
He has. But it's taken years for you guys to get to that point. Yeah. And of growth also.
Yeah. And I mean, that goes, well, I think the years of growth goes back to the pregnancy thing. Yes. I mean, Nick would still say, I mean, he could do a whole episode on his own about how much that rocked his world. Yeah. Like we weren't ready for a baby, and we dated for a year, barely. And then we got engaged, and then we got married 4 months later. So it was a quick timeline, and we were young. We were 24, I think, when we got married. And so we expected to have like 5+ years to grow up.
You had a 5-year IUD.
A 5-year IUD. We're not having kids. I just want to get married so we can like live together and just be married together because we're Christian. We're Christian. We're gonna have a Christian fall.
Yeah, Christian girl fall. Christian girl marriage.
Oh yeah. So that was it. I was like, we want to do life together. So let's get married and do it. And then Miles made his debut,
and in a real way for a Pisces. I don't.
My goodness.
I hear it all the time that like your baby in utero or like their story, like their birth story, and like it's theirs and it's true to who they are. And like, do you feel that for like both of your kids? Like, yes, that like your pregnancies with them and like your experience of like even their like conception and all of that is like
true to who they are. Yeah. Yes. Miles was an emotional roller coaster, and he still is to this day. Like, literally, his conception was so dramatic. And then, I will say after that, pregnancy, very normal, very easy. Birth, very typical for a firstborn. Like,
we'll get into it next step.
Okay, yeah, we'll get into it next step, but that was very normal. But the after, I was pretty mentally prepared for stuff like baby blues because my mom talked about it a lot. She had like a really hard time with me. I was a pretty colicky baby, or I was just a baby in the 90s, and so
they love that word colic.
Yeah, and then so like Nick and I just both went into a pretty dark place after Miles was born, and I don't think either of us understood it until now. Literally, do we fully understand it? Like now, 5 years later. Feeling like we've taken our first like relaxing deep breaths into just like life together.
And I think like your entering into parenthood affecting our friendship is something that, like, it's hard for me not to, like, be annoyed with who I was, because it's like a huge part of me, like, owes you an apology, because I just, like, wasn't there and I didn't know how to be there. And I didn't know how to, like, because I knew you were struggling, but you also never say you're struggling.
I know.
You'll be in the grave before you admit that you're struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember feeling like there have been waves of, like, relief I've had in our friendship. And one of them was when you were talking about when you stopped breastfeeding, and you're like, I didn't know that I was struggling until I stopped breastfeeding. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, we can admit you were struggling?
Yeah.
I would love to admit that. I would love to talk about that, but it's like, it's almost like
you don't want to, like,
you have to have dealt with the feeling and done the hard thing in order to talk about the hard thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like for friendship, that's really difficult, especially for me, where it's like, let's just always talk about hard things and let's be open about it, because it's like, I don't want to, like, come down your throat with, like, hey, are you struggling with postpartum depression? Hey, your baby's kind of whiny and crying a lot and you're not sleeping, and, you know, and you're handling it all on your own.
And and like you've said, I'm the most qualified person in the room. So thinking that I was going to, and I am a good mom, but thinking that I was going to waltz into motherhood and, like, I knew it was going to be, like, messy and hard, but hard does not ever scare me.
Right.
But I was not prepared for the uncontrollable, like, emotions, the emotional hard that it was.
Yeah.
And I just, like, it was, like, one of those things of, like, I think I just felt like you kind of, like, stick your head down, like, you just, like, get through it.
Yeah.
It was like an innocent not asking for help situation.
Yeah.
It was not like, I really want to ask for help, but I'm not allowed to, or something. That was not a conscious feeling.
But I also don't feel like you have that thought. Like, I don't think naturally you're like, oh, I need help.
No,
or I want help.
Yeah, I'm better now.
Yeah.
I asked you for help the other day.
Yeah, I know.
She babysat my kids.
They're so good. They're so annoyingly good.
It's like, I need help. And I was like, you know who would love to help me? Rachel would love to help me.
And it was a logistical task of babysitting. It wasn't like, help, I'm crying, I need
This is, Meredith gets 8 free weeks of counseling a year from work. And I'm already planning to use them to talk about toxic independence.
Yes. Because that is something, like, you know, that has impacted all of your relationships. Yeah. And some of the relationships in your life, I'm sure, find a lot of peace in you being independent, which is why you are the way you are.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
Some of them are, like, especially as I kind of put you up, because, like, you were on a complete pedestal for me, especially, like, spiritually, and, you know, when we were in that, and, like, bringing you off of that, which, like, you know, saved our friendship, but it was, like, rebuilding, like, okay,
figuring out how
she's not on a pedestal anymore.
Yeah, how can we be, like, just here?
Yes, how can we just exist together as friends and build a friendship that's not built on, like, spiritual guidance or, you know.
Yeah, and just, like, regular life.
Yeah,
and because that is, like, adult friend. Like, I think that happens really easily when you're young and you, like, make friendships and, like, someone's on a pedestal or someone is this and this. But as adults, you don't do that very much, because you just know that people are crap. Everyone sucks at most things, or at least some things.
Yeah, I don't believe you suck at most things, but
I do.
It's still, the pedestal still exists. It's more like a little step stool, a little soapbox. Okay, but it is this, like, us building our friendship. I was like, so, like, a year ago, you came over, and my house smelled so bad, like stained floors. It was your brand new house. My brand new house.
We sat in this corner over here.
Yeah, we sat in this corner, ate some snacks, and just cried. Because
it's hard.
Because it was hard. And it was this, like, finally saying what needed to be said, which is, like, you know, we'd make comments about, like, I really struggle with Nick, or I really struggle with this.
Yeah.
And, you know, but it was like, you never said, this is hurting me.
Yeah. Because we're both, I could never be like, well, it's really hard because I can't talk about marriage very much because you already don't like Nick. So I can't talk about any problems I'm having with Nick because that's the last thing you need is, like, ammo towards not liking him.
Right.
That's something that my sister and I talk about a lot, is that, like, We have to be able to talk about things and not assume that it's going to cloud other people's judgments.
Yes.
Like we can talk about our partners in a way that we need to.
Yeah.
Without me, like you could say whatever you want about Josh and it's not going to change my mind that I think he's right for you.
Right.
He's a human being.
Right, exactly. And that is how I see Nick as well.
Yeah.
Like, and I think, like...
He might not act like one all the time, but he is a human being.
Like, I don't know. I'm like, I think Nick and I just need to go on, like, a cruise or something where we can just be in the same... And just, like, have some weird bonding experiences. Like, do a high ropes course. I don't know what him and I need to do.
Or, like, the four of us need, like, a cabin for, like, 4 days. With not a lot of options.
When I tell you, Meredith, I've like just made lists about, okay, these are all the things about Nick that I like. And I'm like, but why can't I connect with the man?
He doesn't make it easy.
No. But because he's not making it actively hard anymore. Yeah.
But like he's a 5, so like what he sees is like everything is truth. Everything is like a fact of like this is how it is. Mm-hmm. So Nick meets you at the end of your relationship, but you're still more conservative Christian than he's ever been because he's just not like he was. He
was there at the start. He was at our wedding.
Gosh, yes, he was.
Yeah,
with Frank.
Never forget.
I'm just going to say it as it was. Meredith got the job of driving Frank home after the rehearsal. Meredith had that job.
Why?
There was one other person, and then they left us. They left the group.
You know, it was good. I'm sure it was healthy.
Because I'm sure, Frank being Frank, we had some quality conversation.
Yeah, riveting.
Anyways, yeah, he was. He was there for the whole ride of the wedding, which does not. One of Nick's best attributes is that he is looking out for the best for me. He wants me to be as selfish as he is,
yes,
or as he thinks other people in my life are.
Yes.
So if he feels like something is draining me more than it should be, he wants it to go away.
Right.
So I think he takes any amount of emotional duress as like, this is too much.
Yes.
So if it's like, oh, Rachel called today, she has a TV in her back seat and she's really upset, like things are not going well. He's like, this is not good for you. Like you're carrying this around. I'm like, well, that's just friendship. That's on like a girl friendship where we actually know things about each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Hi, Queenie. Come here. Here, do you want to tell the story? Do you want to tell the pod all about it? Come here. Come here. Queenie, do you have anything to say?
Make the noise for the mic, please.
Anything to say for the pod? Do you just need love? Did you guys know when cats are in heat, they don't bleed?
Well, thank God for that.
I know.
Can you imagine putting a diaper on a cat?
They just scream.
I would pick screaming over bleeding, I think.
Crazy.
I do remember Willow being in heat.
Never forget. My mom's dog. They make me tell that story every so often when new guests come to the house. It's my mom's favorite story.
Is Willow in diapers?
Yeah. Willow in diapers. No, but when I had to take Willow to go to the bathroom and we were like approached by male dogs.
Oh.
Yeah. And I'm screaming like, get on! And I think the thought is, okay, if I'm ever out and Willow has to go to the bathroom and a dog comes up to us, I'm just going to pick her up. No, she limp noodled. She went down to the ground. She said, I will accept what has happened.
I will submit.
And I was like, this bitch. But luckily their owners came back and we were not attacked. But oh my gosh. So long story short, I would say Meredith and I had a good, solid 5 years of struggle.
Yeah.
Of ups and downs and like knowing that we're best friends and not really like.
Not like questioning that.
But just knowing that we were really having a tough time.
And it was like a frustration of like, I don't know what is wrong. Like it was hard to pinpoint what was wrong. Mm-hmm. Or more than that, how to like change it. So it was like, what's wrong? Okay, she doesn't like Nick. Well, that's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
What's wrong?
Can't fix that.
Yeah, it's like, oh, what's wrong? She like I'm having a baby and she's not. Okay, well, can't fix that. This is like, how do we And I mean, there are obviously, you look back and you're like, if I could have like shared what I was going through more, that would have helped. Or like if we could have just talked about it more, that would have helped. But in the moment, it was like maybe just time.
Yeah. Well, I think it got to a point where it was like, either we're not going to be friends and like this isn't anything, or like we have to make a change.
Yeah.
It's like, it's either we establish honesty in our friendship, which like I don't think we thought was lacking, but it clearly, like, we were not always being honest with each other, with our situations, and obviously protecting, you know, spouses and protecting those things. But definitely, like, you know, a year ago being able to hear like motherhood was hard for you in a way that I'm like, I had no idea.
Yeah. And I was carrying around like a lot of guilt for other things, because I think motherhood was so hard that I was aware that I had like dropped the ball. In my mind, I had dropped the ball in other parts of my life, but I felt guilty over that. And I don't think it was like a conscious thought of like, Rachel won't understand because she doesn't have a kid. But I think that was probably like the filter of like, oh, I can't say like, I just can't be a good friend right now. Right. It sounds like, not selfish, but it just sounds like pathetic is what it felt like.
But I think it was also hard for me because it was like, who are you talking to about any of it?
Yeah.
Nobody.
It's usually true. Yeah.
Like that, like it's the silent struggling that I'm like, can we talk about that now? That like, this is not like an admirable trait anymore. It's like, let's try to be more vulnerable. Maybe let's try to be more in tune with our emotions, because I never would have thought that you weren't. But I think it's because of like the way that you lead with like empathy and sympathy and like genuine care for other people, that like it took me a while to realize that like you don't have those same, like you're not in tune in that same way with yourself.
Oh, I'm absolutely not. No.
No,
we're better now. I can identify emotions better.
Yeah. But it's probably Miles' calming corner.
That's on childhood trauma.
Yeah. And like raising kids and
Yeah, I just grew up in a space where there wasn't a lot of room for my emotions.
Right.
There's more room for them now.
Yeah. Some should say they can take up the whole room if they need to.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're gonna.
I know, it's just funny because you said earlier, like, you said you thought like that you maybe wanted to like apologize, so like be there for me and blah blah. But in classic Meredith thing, I felt such a sense of relief when you were pregnant, because I was like, now I can help her the way that I wish someone would have been able to help me.
Right.
Because I'm like, I can help her and she's not going to have to ask or say what she needs. Because that's all I ever want. Right. Is for someone to be able to read my mind.
Yes. But it's
my mind, and people can't read minds.
And you are also the most qualified person in the room. So like any advice, like with breastfeeding, it was like, I'm going to sleep on the recliner and I'm going to be downstairs so it doesn't bother Nick. And so I could just breastfeed. And so like you form systems systematically that you are the only one needing to be relied on until you can feel like, you know, you can like hand over responsibility.
Yeah, someone has to like prove themselves.
Yes. But like, you know, instead of being like, oh, why aren't you like pumping and, you know, giving bottles? So Nick, it's like, no. And then you just went, well, I'm just like, okay.
Yeah. Well then, but that was hard at the beginning too with Miles. And I think because sometimes I'm like, I want to think I'm an external processor, but I'm absolutely not. I'm an internal processor. And so I like struggle to talk things out before I present things as like fully formed. And like breastfeeding was one of those things. And like I went to experts, like I went to like a lactation consultant, and like I sought help with Miles. But then in the end I was like, there's just no way around this.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's more details. But like even with pumping, it was like an ounce. It's like, well, what good is this going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would give my old self different advice.
Yeah.
But
still.
I know. I'm a hard person to advise.
But we love you.
But I try. Yeah, I like in my mind, I do not think that I know everything.
Right.
I think I just present myself. It's like a vulnerability thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
And so we're going to record another episode right after this that you won't hear for another 4 or 5 weeks. But you'll have it to look forward to, everyone.
Yeah.
And we're
going
to
to be on the edge of your seat.
We're going to get into more like parenting, pregnancy, all of that kind of fun stuff. But yeah, this is For Better and Worse podcast with Rach and
Meredith.
And we're out.
She really